What is going on, guys? American football is one of the most physical sports in the world. Big hits and tackles are a centerpiece of the game, but there are also strict rules regarding exactly how those hits and tackles may be administered. And of course, there are always players who find a way to break those rules. Every NFL team has at least one player in their history who's done it. Here's a look at the dirtiest play of all time for each of the NFL's 32 teams. Arizona Cardinals. Antonio Bethé's hit on CJ Beathard. Antonio Bethea has been one of the more underrated safeties in the 21st century, earning 3 Pro Bowl selections while helping the Indianapolis Colts win Super Bowl 41 during a 2017 game against the 49ers. Bethea made headlines for all the wrong reasons, when he dished out an awful hit on quarterback CJ Beathard after the latter attempted a slide at the end of a run. Another reminder to leave the quarterback alone when he's sliding. Atlanta Falcons. Donte Robinson's hit on Deshaun Jackson. In football, there are few things as gruesome as seeing a defenseless receiver get hit up high. It's especially worse when defensive players seem to do it on purpose. He dished out this brutal headshot on Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, showing zero regard for the wideout's well-being. Jackson suffered a concussion on the play. Robinson was given a personal foul penalty and later hit with a $50,000 fine. Baltimore Ravens. Antoine Barnes cheap shot on Sav Roca. Barnes played in the NFL from 2007 to 2014, making stops in Baltimore, Philadelphia, San Diego, and New York with the Jets. But Barnes is probably best remembered for an ugly hit on Philadelphia Eagles punter Sav Roca during a 2007 preseason game, which led to a $12,500 fine. Barnes wasn't happy with the fine, trying to claim that it wasn't a helmet-to-helmet hit and that Roca is simply taller than him. Yeah, nice try, Antoine. Buffalo Bills. Robert Woods' punch leads to ejection before he became a key part of the Los Angeles Rams offense under head coach Sean McVay. Robert Woods was a misused and underachieving wideout in Buffalo. He just couldn't gain that star-like form that we have seen from him in LA. Bills fans might best remember Woods for his dirty punch to the head of Miami Dolphins safety Rashad Jones during a 2013 game. Woods was ejected and hit with a $15,000 fine for his dirty play. Carolina Panthers. Dante Wesley's hit on Clifton Smith. It's hard to envision a more gutless play in football than when a player hits a defenseless punt returner, especially before they get a chance to field the punt. During a 2009 game between the Panthers and Buccaneers, veteran Dante Wesley dished out a brutal and disgusting hit on returner Clifton Smith, who hadn't even touched the ball yet. Wesley was rightfully ejected and hit with a 1-game suspension for the cheap shot. Cincinnati Bengals. Vontaze Burfict headhunt Antonio Brown. Former Bengals Pro Bowl linebacker Vontaze Burfict could very well go down as the dirtiest player in NFL history. The guy was just a jerk on the field. Not really more we can say. There's a long list of awful hits committed by Burfict, but his worst was when he went headhunting on Antonio Brown in the waning seconds of the Bengals' 2015 wildcard loss against the Steelers. Burfict was flagged for a personal foul, and teammate Adam Jones took another careless penalty after confronting Joey Porter. The Steelers were set up with an easy game-winning field goal as a result, and they nailed it to eliminate the Bengals and advance to the divisional round. Burfict was also hit with a 3-game suspension for the 2016 season for that hit on Brown. Chicago Bears. Danny Trevathan knocks out Davante Adams. The veteran linebacker was a key cog for the Denver Broncos Super Bowl 50 championship team in 2015, but Trevathan's image took quite the hit during a 2017 Thursday nighter between the Bears and Green Bay Packers. Trevathan was initially suspended for 2 games, but he somehow had it reduced to 1. Thankfully, Adams avoided serious injury, and he was back in the lineup for the Packers' next game. Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett swings helmet at Mason Rudolph. The 2019 Browns were Cleveland's most hyped-up football team in decades, but the season was a train wreck from the get-go. We could go on about all the drama and struggles that plagued the team in 2019, but the lowlight of the year came when franchise star Myles Garrett committed a heinous act in Week 11 against the rival Pittsburgh Steelers. Garrett got into a brawl with quarterback Mason Rudolph, and the former first overall pick lost it in the heat of the moment. He ripped off Rudolph's helmet and proceeded to hit him on the head with it. Garrett was suspended for the remainder of the season. More importantly, Rudolph somehow avoided any serious injury. Dallas Cowboys. Jeff Heath on Ricardo Lockett. Lockett was part of the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl 48 championship team, and he was inches away from catching the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 49 that was instead picked off by Malcolm Butler. The Seahawks hoped for a bigger year from Lockett in 2015, but his career unfortunately came to an end following a horrible blindside hit from Dallas safety Jeff Heath. Lockett needed neck surgery and retired after the season. He then began working with the Seattle Science Foundation medication to help with spinal injury research. Denver Broncos. Joe Mays headshot on Matt Schaub. The Broncos hosted the Houston Texans in Week 3 of the 2012 season. It was a hyped-up showdown between Peyton Manning's new team and the Texans, who were a prime AFC favorite that year. The game quickly turned ugly for the Broncos, due in large part to undisciplined play. Houston was able to pull away thanks to stupid penalties by Denver, including this ugly shot from Joe Mays on Matt Schaub. You'll notice that Schaub even lost part of his ear on this play. Detroit Lions. Ndamukong Suh's stomp on Evan Dietrich Smith. Suh is one of the game's biggest philanthropists off the field, but unfortunately, he'll forever go down as one of the dirtiest players in NFL history. Suh has committed a handful of woeful on-the-field acts before, but his stomp on Evan Dietrich Smith during a 2011 Thanksgiving game takes the cake as Suh's dirtiest move. Suh was suspended 2 games for this incident. Green Bay Packers. Charles Martin's body slam on Jim McMahon. Martin played in the CFL before finally getting his big break in 1984, when he joined the historic Packers organization. But Martin's short-lived NFL career will forever be overshadowed by an ugly incident during a 1986 game against the Bears. Martin supposedly had a hit list before the game, and Bears quarterback Jim McMahon was on it. Martin grabbed McMahon from behind and body slammed him WWE style into the ground. Martin was ejected and suspended for 2 games, while McMahon unfortunately suffered a season-ending shoulder injury on the play. Houston Texans. DeAndre Hopkins body slams Marcus Williams. Superstar wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is really one of the NFL's model players on and off the field. He's somebody that we deem impossible to hate, but even the best have their worst moments. And for Hopkins, it was an ugly body slam on New Orleans Saints safety Marcus Williams in Week 1 of the 2019 season. Easy there, DeAndre. Indianapolis Colts. ERIK Walden headbutts Delanie Walker. ERIK Walden was part of the Green Bay Packers Super Bowl 45 championship team. Walden will unfortunately be best remembered for one heinous on-the-field act. In the 2013 game against the Tennessee Titans, Walden, who was a member of the Colts at the time, simply lost his temper and ripped Delanie Walker's helmet off his head. Walden then proceeded to headbutt the Pro Bowl tight end. Walden received a 1-game suspension for the headbutting incident, and he's lucky it wasn't more. Jacksonville Jaguars. Barry Church's headshot on Gronk. The Jaguars were leading the Patriots 14-3 late in the second quarter of the 2017 AFC Championship game, but careless penalties and undisciplined play cost Jacksonville dearly in the game. A key turning point occurred late in the first half, when Barry Church dished out an ugly headshot to Rob Gronkowski. Gronkowski suffered a concussion and missed the rest of the game, but the penalty led to a Patriots touchdown, and they went on to win by a final score of 24-20. Gronk recovered in time for Super Bowl 52 though, but the Pats fell to the Eagles. Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones punches Andrew Norwell. Chris Jones has been an anchor on the Kansas City Chiefs defensive line for several years, though he's quite the fan favorite in KC. Jones most certainly isn't the most popular guy in Jacksonville. During a 2018 game against the Jaguars, Jones was ejected when he elbowed Andrew Norwell in the back of the leg during an extra point attempt. Chris, this is not boxing. Sorry. Los Angeles Chargers. Rodney Harrison headhunts Jeremy Brigham. Former Chargers and Patriots safety Rodney Harrison was unquestionably a big-time playmaker and game changer. He was also an incredibly dirty player, and karma hit him when David Tyree made that iconic helmet catch against him in Super Bowl 42. Harrison had plenty of dirty, vicious hits throughout his career, but this ugly headshot on Jeremy Brigham of the Oakland Raiders in 2000 was by far his worst. Harrison was fined a whopping $40,000 for that, although that number would easily be in the 6-figure range in today's NFL. Los Angeles Rams. Lamarcus Joyner's headshot on Teddy Bridgewater. In some ways, the NFL is soft when it comes to roughing the passer penalties and other rules that are in place to protect the quarterback. But there are some instances that remind you as to why the NFL has these rules in effect. Take, for example, the time when Lamarcus Joyner knocked out Minnesota Vikings quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. It was a brutal and gutless hit to the head. Joyner received a $23,000 fine for that. So yeah, the punishment probably didn't fit the crime in this case. Miami Dolphins. Kiko Alonso's cheap shot on Joe Flacco. The Miami Dolphins visited the Baltimore Ravens in a 2017 Thursday nighter. The Fins should have just taken the day off because they simply forgot to show up and play. The main storyline of this game, however, was Kiko Alonso's awful and sickening hit to the head of quarterback Joe Flacco while the latter was sliding on a running play. Somehow, Alonso didn't get suspended for this hit. Instead, he was given a slap in the wrist in the form of a $9,115 fine, which is far too little. Minnesota Vikings. Holton Hill on Paxton Lynch. The Texans product joined the Minnesota Vikings as an undrafted free agent in 2018. Hill only started 3 games in his rookie year, and he was clearly bent on trying to prove himself during the 2019 preseason. But Hill crossed the line big time during a preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks. Paxton Lynch was finishing a slide, and Hill couldn't stop himself from delivering a brutal headshot on the defenseless signal caller. Hill was given a $10,527 fine. It's very specific. We're surprised the punishment wasn't worse though. New New England Patriots. Rob Gronkowski's elbow on Tre'Davious White. The Patriots may be the most hated team in the NFL, but it was practically impossible for anybody to dislike Rob Gronkowski. The party boy and Pro Bowl tight end was always up for a good laugh. He brought a ton of positive energy on and off the field, and even Patriots haters had to admire the guy. However, Gronkowski changed a bit of the narrative when he delivered a vicious elbow to the head of Bills rookie cornerback Tre'Davious White, who was on the ground and defenseless after making an interception. White cleared concussion protocol, but Gronk was rightfully hit with a one-game suspension. He owned up to it and apologized for the mistake. But to us, it's the dirtiest play in the history of this proud organization. New Orleans Saints. Kurt Warner Bountygate hit. Bountygate is one of the most humiliating scandals in the history of the NFL. In 2012, it was discovered that New Orleans coaches were paying out bonuses to players if they managed to injure specific players on opposing teams. One of the victims was Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kurt Warner, who was targeted by the Saints during their 2009 NFC Divisional Round game. After Warner threw an interception, Bobby McCray came in and dished out a vicious block to the future Hall of Fame quarterback. Warner was knocked out of the game, and the Saints cruised to a 45-14 victory. Warner, for what it's worth, believed that he was hit clean. New York Giants. Odell Beckham Jr. headhunts Josh Norman. This one is probably the most classic dirty hit in the history of the NFL, at least in the modern time. So Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. and Panthers cornerback Josh Norman went at it all game long in their Week 15 2015 showdown. There was a lot of trash talk between the two, and things only got worse as the game progressed. Both players were in the wrong throughout the game, but it's hard to deny that Beckham's headhunting on Norman was by far the ugliest moment from this feud. Beckham was suspended one game for his cheap shot on Norman, while the Panthers corner received a $26,000 fine for his actions. New York Jets. Eric Smith's helmet-to-helmet hit on Kwon Bolden. Michigan product Eric Smith played with the New York Jets from 2006 to 2012, and he helped them reach consecutive AFC Championship games in 2009 and 2010. But many best remember Smith for a brutal helmet-to-helmet hit he delivered on Arizona Cardinals wide receiver Kwon Bolden during a 2008 regular season game. Smith received a one-game suspension and a $50,000 fine for the hit on Bolden, who was knocked out and sidelined for several weeks after suffering fractures in his paranasal sinuses. Oakland Raiders. Jack Tatum ends Darryl Stingley's career. He was a legend in Oakland, but former Pro Bowl safety Jack Tatum developed a reputation as one of the NFL's most ruthless players. The man dished out plenty of punishing hits throughout his career, and Tatum's style of play earned him the nickname the Assassin. Tatum's worst on-the-field acts is one of the most tragic in NFL history. It took place during a 1978 preseason game against the Patriots. New England wideout Darryl Stingley collided with Tatum while catching a pass, and the former suffered serious damage to his spine. Stingley's NFL career ended instantly, and he was left a quadriplegic for the rest of his life. Stingley sadly passed away in 2007, having never made amends with Tatum. Pittsburgh Steelers. James Harrison on Colt McCoy. For an undrafted player, James Harrison sure carried out quite the career. 2 Super Bowl championships, 2008 Defensive Player of the Year, and 5 Pro Bowl selections. Oh, and the millions of dollars had to be fun too. That said, Harrison's big mouth, harsh comments, and dirty style of play made him one of the league's most disliked players outside of Pittsburgh. The dirtiest play of Harrison's career. This awful shot on Cleveland Browns quarterback Colt McCoy during a 2011 game. The NFL suspended Harrison for 1 game, and though he didn't technically receive a fine from the league, he lost out on a game check worth approximately $73,500. Philadelphia Eagles. Derek Barnett on Jamal Williams. Derek Barnett will forever be a hero in Philadelphia for recovering the Tom Brady fumble in the waning seconds of Super Bowl 52, which helped clinch the Eagles their very first Lombardi trophy. But Barnett made a bad name for himself during the Eagles' Week 4 2019 road game against the Green Bay Packers. While running back Jamal Williams was being wrapped up on a tackle, Barnett ran in and delivered a vicious cheap shot to the running back's head. Williams thankfully avoided serious injury despite having to be taken off in a stretcher. Barnett was given nothing more than a $28,075 fine. San Francisco 49ers. Kwon Alexander lowers helmet on Jameis Winston. After 4 seasons with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kwon Alexander inked a 4-year deal worth $55 million with the 49ers in 2019. He didn't have to wait long to see his old teammates, as Alexander and the 49ers visited Tampa Bay in Week 1, but Alexander didn't get to say hello for very long, because he was ejected after lowering his helmet on quarterback Jameis Winston. Alexander, by the way, received the game ball after the 49ers came away with the victory, so that's weird. Seattle Seahawks. Richard Sherman's low hit on Dan Carpenter. The Seahawks dominated and intimidated opposing offenses during the Legion of Boom era. The likes of Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, and Earl Thomas used physical styles of play, and they were never afraid to dish out the big hits. But sometimes, the Seahawks went great lengths to try and rough up their opponents. Take this instance in a 2016 game against the Buffalo Bills. Watch as Sherman goes low on kicker Dan Carpenter. Somehow Sherman was only given a 5-yard penalty on the play here. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Evans' cheap shot on Marshon Lattimore. The Bucs' rivalry with the Saints has been a one-sided affair in the 21st century. Maybe that's why there isn't all that much heat and tension in the NFC South rivalry these days. However, tempers flared big time during a 2017 showdown between the two clubs. Jameis Winston provoked Saints corner Marshon Lattimore by poking him in the back on the neck. When Lattimore retaliated, Bucs receiver Mike Evans came in from behind and dished out a dirty cheap shot. Evans was given a one-game suspension for the hit. The punishment fit the crime in this instance. Tennessee Titans. Albert Haynesworth stomps on Andre Gerard. While Washington fans will remember Albert Haynesworth as the worst free agent signing in NFL history, Titans fans will best remember him for his awful and sickening on-the-field act during a 2006 game against the Cowboys. Cowboys offensive lineman Andre Gerard was on the ground with his helmet off, and Haynesworth came over and stepped right on his head. That led to an ejection, and Haynesworth was hit with a 5-game suspension. Gerard required 30 stitches to close the wound he received. The Redskins really gave that guy $100 million after watching him commit a brutal act like that. Classic Dan Snyder. Oh, and speaking of the Redskins, Washington Redskins. DeShazier Everett's cheap shot on Darren Sproles. Even if a punt return doesn't signal a fair catch, you aren't supposed to hit him before the ball arrives. Why do so many players forget this rule? We've seen a handful of ugly hits on special teams returners before they get a chance to field the ball. But what Everett did here to Darren Sproles in a 2016 game was probably the most gutless of them all. Everett was fined $48,000 for that hit on Sproles. He just couldn't keep it clean. Which do you think is the dirtiest play in NFL history? Join me in the comment section below. Make sure to follow myself and TPS on social media. We post great content all the time. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, we're on everything. Go find us. If you like this video, give it a like. It takes one click down below. And subscribe to TPS. We post videos every day. Every day's a new video. Of course, thank you so much for watching. I'm Jason Biondo. My knee.
My knee.
Bye.